Hello once again, nonverbal communication students. It's your good old Dr. Ivy here talking to you a little bit about Chapter 7 in our textbook, Nonverbal Communication for a Lifetime. This chapter is on face and eyes. Now, technically, the face and the eyes are part of the body, right? We all know this. But because they are such massive channels of nonverbal information, we tend to study them separately. There's a ton of research on facial expressions as a really important nonverbal cue, and then also eye behavior. Now, we got to take into context the strange circumstances that we are in right now, right? Duh, we all know this. A good chunk of our faces are uh, hidden because of the masks that we're wearing, and we all know how important it is to wear those masks. And but it is odd. I think I asked the class the question not too long ago. How do you know if you're attracted to someone if you can't see their whole face? Now, a lot of you probably use dating apps. That's now, research says, the number one way that people make dating connections, even form friendships. So, on those dating apps, you obviously, I think, are full face and people can see one another just like if you use FaceTime on your phone or Skype, okay, or other kind of virtual chatting ways of doing things. But it is sort of different to have only this much of the face showing when you're in a face-to-face situation. Maybe some of y'all feel like it is too unsafe to date. That doesn't mean we still don't want meaningful connections with other people, and we use our faces and our eyes to convey how we feel about people and what we're thinking, and just to help get our meaning across. So we're going to talk about the importance of facial expressions, even given the fact that we're in this weird pandemic situation, and a lot of people you just can't see anymore. And I think that's one reason the face shields are effective. At least I feel better in them because I'm such a rubber face. And sometimes it's hard to hear me, and I'm kind of sarcastic, as you very well know, my students know. So the face shield is not as safe, and I realize that, so that's why I stay at such far distances most of the time. But um, it does help me kind of convey what I need to convey as a classroom instructor. Anyway, take a look at the stuff on facial behavior. A lot of facial expression is natural or inborn, innate, and it's a lot of it's connected to evolution. Just the survival of the species and making connections with people, sort of for purposes of procreating the species, survival of the species. And so we have to make connections, and we have to reproduce and have offspring and keep the human beings going. So there are some things that we do facially that are not intentional, that are just born in us. There's some research that has been done with congenitally blind children. These are children blind from birth. They've never seen a human facial expression, and yet they make very similar facial expressions to people who are sighted. And so, like, one of the research studies put a nasty smelling stimulus in front of the noses of blind children, and they all went like this. Okay? And they've not ever seen a human being go like that. But they all reared back and hit up the bridge of the nose as to shut off the transmission of a foul smell. So that's not a learned behavior. That's an innate behavior, right? That's an instinctive thing or something that's born in us. It's an evolutionary behavior that we have. So think about that. Then there are a lot of facial expressions that are learned. A lot of us mimic the facial expressions we saw our parents making or our siblings, because those are the relationships that were most prominent as we're growing up, and we're learning to form those facial expressions based on what we see other people do. There are some facial expressions we may make that are just because of the way our faces look and the things that we can do. Some of y'all can shoot one eyebrow way up the top of your forehead. I can't. I have to really think about it. But some of you can do some things that others of us can't do. And so some of the things about our faces that give messages to others are just kind of incidental. It's just the way our face looks. Maybe our eyes are set too close together, and so we don't seem as trustworthy. Maybe we have a lot of lid. I have a lot of eyelid, and so sometimes that makes me either look sleepy or sort of doe-eyed and sort of innocent. I'm not at all innocent, but my eyes may look that way, or I may just look like sort of I'm sleepy. I also have the right eye. This is my right eye, even though I'm in a mirrored position with you. My right eye droops more than my left eye, and it's just shaped differently. And many of us do not have facial symmetry, and that's a term that's in this chapter as well. One of the other indications of beauty in many cultures, besides that waist to hip ratio, and we talked about that a couple of chapters back, but one indication of beauty is facial symmetry. Does one side of the face match the other side of the face? And for many of us, they do not. One side of the mouth is a little bit lower. Maybe you have one nostril that's bigger than the other. Maybe you have one eye that's bigger than the other, and I certainly do have that. This eye has more lid than this one. This one has always drooped, even when I was, in my teens and 20s. So facial symmetry is something to think about, because when we do look at photographs or we see other people, it may not be something that we register and go, oh, well, your left side of your face doesn't match the right side of your face. We may not pick that up, but it is something that registers us within us as a level of beauty that we pick up. We may think somebody is extremely handsome, and then when you go to analyze why, maybe there's a lot of symmetrical facial features that are happening. And so that's something to think about. So we talk about in the first few pages the learned perspective as well as the innate perspective. We know facial expressions are kind of a bit of both. Take a look at the whole thing on genuine smiles, the Duchenne smile, the genuine smile, the felt smile versus the fake smile. The fake smile does not typically engage all the muscles around the eyes, and so people can fake a smile by just going. That's quite different than going. And the eyes, the eye muscles, and the whole face is sort of engaged in the smile. And so that's a tiny difference, but it's something to watch out for. We use facial expressions for all kinds of things. Please take a look around page 226, 227. Ekman and Friesen, again, the great classifiers, the great categorizers, have given us a list of 8 kinds of expressors, the way people express themselves through their faces. You can be more than one of these. You could be a withholder at one point in time and then a revealer at another point in time. Maybe it's with a different person. There's some changes that you make in your facial expression depending on the person you're interacting with. And so that's something to look at. Ekman and Friesen also gave us this FACS, facial action coding system, and that's used in a lot of research and is still used today. They've divided the face into 3 regions. Now this is interesting because the lower face, from the cheeks, the nose, and the mouth, mostly is what is masked these days. And so we've got a sliver here and we've got the forehead region we can use, but this bottom region from the nose to the chin is massively important. And if that is not able to be seen, we're losing a lot of information. And so just think about that. The whole thing with facial expressions is changing. I know there's a lot of good research being done in the country right now. A lot of research. You can just imagine it's being done all over the place. And a lot of nonverbal researchers are looking at, do we compensate? We had a discussion just in class not too long ago about compensating with our voices or using our eyes and our eyebrows and our foreheads more because this part can't be seen. And so if you can't smile at somebody in a store or in class, how do you let them know you're smiling and giving them a friendly facial expression? Well, you got to compensate with something else. So we're figuring out how to do that. You know, there's a bunch of interesting research that's going on right now. I'll close this section. I'll move on to eyes on another video, but look at the section on 231, starting on 231 with the modifying of the face. Facelifts have been around a long time. Botox and other kinds of injections have been around a while. They're pretty much normalized now, but that's a very interesting and individual decision as to whether people want to do something that is painful and has a long recovery time. For some of these cosmetic procedures, certainly a facelift is quite dramatic still. Just basically taking one's face off, gruesome, and lifting it all upward and reattaching it. And I've had a couple of friends who have done this. And I saw them during recovery, and it scared the crap out of me. So I will not be doing that, but I don't begrudge anybody doing things. Some people get collagen injections into their lips. Some people have the Botox in the upper area to reduce wrinkling and to look younger. There are facial peels and chemical treatments and all kinds of things that people do to enhance their appearance and thus enhance their self-esteem. So, take a look at that section. So I will sign off right now and come back to you a little bit later on the last part of the chapter, which is on eyes. All right. Thanks, everybody.